I'm here with Gita Rose, and I'm very pleased that you're here with me, Gita. And thank you for answering some of my questions that I have about you. The first one is, I really am intrigued by your name. Do you, Gita Rose, would you be willing to share about, I don't think that's your original name that you were born with here, right? Or is it?
No, it's not. Yeah, so first off, thanks for having me, and this is super fun, and nice to see you today as well. Yeah, my given name is Marjorie. Rose is my middle name, and it's a lovely name, Marjorie, but I just never really resonated with it. And I was spending some time with a musician from Spain, and we were actually, this is when I was still kind of in the process of awakening, I suppose. And we were out drinking beers in a little hippie town called Fairfax. And he had a very strong Barcelona accent. And he was like, and I went by Margie then. And he said, Margie, Marcia, I do not like your name. I cannot say your name. I'm like, I know, Javier. I've never really liked it either. And he was like, Margarita, nah, Gita.
Wow.
Call you Gita Rose. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love it. And then I actually went and looked it up, and I was like, oh, wow, it's a very sacred name. This was, quite a few years ago, so I didn't know a lot of what I know now. And I was like, oh, interesting. It's, from the Bhagavad Gita. And it translates simply enough to song or to vocalist. So that was really synchronistic and relevant for me. And so I adopted it kind of then and there. And I shortly after moved to Hawaii. And so it was really easy to go by a new name there. And then I moved back to the Bay Area, and it was a fairly smooth adjustment, all things considered, of my friends and family being able to jump on board. And everyone has different variations of it. Some people still call me by my given name. Some people call me Gita, Gigi, Geets, G. I go by a whole bunch of different names. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Very interesting. Thank you for sharing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so I also wanted to ask you about, I know that you have so many different excitements. I don't know if they're all still active right now, but like I looked up you online, and I found that you were a model and a singer and an actress, and now you're a channeler and intergalactic intuitive guide. And was there anything else? A restaurant worker.
Yeah.
Have I missed anything? Yoga teacher, right?
Yeah. I think that's it. Musician as well.
Really? You play something other than singing? Or
I play. I very much play, absolutely. But piano, guitar, woodwinds I can usually play around with, and a little bit of drumming as well. But I very much play with those instruments, but I can, I can plunk some things out, and, I'm slow, but we make some okay sounds for sure. Yeah, and everything I feel is relevant and applies to me, being a channel specifically for Bella and a storyteller of this information in a way that can be applicable and understood for a wide variety of perspectives. I feel that all of the different interests and choices and roles that I've played in my life have really laid the foundation and prepared me to be able to do what I'm doing now. So I'm a server in many different ways. I'm here to be of service, and through play as much as possible. And so, yes, I am still serving at the restaurant, but I have scaled down my time there to just a couple of days a week. Feels really nice. And I haven't been in like a traditional play in a while, or a movie or a show or anything. That was quite a few years ago to get the channeling muscles working. and I still sing, and not necessarily doing any type of modeling except for my own uses for basically for Instagram, for utilizing it to because I know how our brains work, and I do think that I chose this vessel specifically for this incarnation to be a certain form of storyteller, and then to also be able to simply enough get people's attention. And I feel like it's okay to own a certain level of it. And I've worked with like, okay, like it's okay to like own that and to, you know, not burn the house down with it, but it's okay to have a certain level of understanding that there was a very specific choice in my incarnating in this form. So I do my own modeling with a photographer friend of mine, and then do my own pictures, basically just for my own promotions. But it's also like, I love the art of it. I love being able to create something in different settings, and I love clothes and being able to, I do mainly thrift shopping, so I can get like really beautiful gowns for like $10, and it's really fun to clue into my higher self and my inspiration that way, and to be like, oh, today's the day, like go to the Salvation Army today, like there is a present for you, and sure enough, I'll align with these like really beautiful garments. So it still definitely comes into play in all of the ways that I am stepping into this new form of a channel and storyteller.
Yeah, I really appreciate the pictures that you post on Instagram and Facebook. I think they're really beautiful and artistic. I love all the unique qualities that you express through them, you know. Especially, I think there was one recently, maybe around St. Patrick's Day, that you had when you were had a drum and you were on the mountains.
Yeah.
It was just, it had a really beautiful energy about it that I was able
to. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Okay, I wanted to ask you about, now you said that the acting definitely helped prepare you for channeling. And what do you think is the difference between matching the frequency of your character when you're acting or matching the frequency of Bella? Is there much of a difference?
Honestly, there isn't from my perspective and my process. It's interesting. It makes me emotional because for me as an actor, I could feel, even before I knew the physics of it, before, you know, the understanding that on some level we are actually tapping into a parallel reality where these characters are in some level of existence. They're in some level of a, maybe even a thought form reality, or something that is even a very physical reality. And by matching the vibration or acting as that character, we're actually channeling. There was a part of me that knew that, even without needing to understand the physics behind it. And so I approached my storytelling in a way where I fully, like, to some level believed that this was a real person. And I really thought about, what would this person wear? What does this person do when we're not seeing them? All of the objectives and the different actions and their intentions. Like, I was really almost overly methodical in a way with doing my research, but so that I could really feel the true essence of the character. And then it was like entering into an altered state before I even knew what I was doing. My ability to memorize lines was really fast. And I think it was because I, on a subconscious level, was tapping into the true energy of this character in this parallel reality in the story. And so for the first few years of channeling, it was this type of vocal channeling with Bella before I really had a clear outline of her character. It was a different process to me. It was a lot more about calming myself, learning to just match the vibration, the frequency. It was a bit different, applying more meditative techniques. I spent a lot of time in the emotion of the unknown. I've shared this before, but this was a really huge part of what allowed me to click, to know, like, oh, I don't know. And there's going to be, I'm going to hear things, I'm going to see things, and just to let it come out. And like, that's then what you know is when you know it. But to really sit in the knowing of the knowing that I don't know, which is very weird and uncomfortable. And I think it is also a mirror for what our whole existence is, right? But for the first few years before I really got the full outline of who she was, it was a different process for me, and much more based in maybe what we would define as spiritual techniques rather than acting techniques, and allowed my ego to shift enough to just allow the true improv through, which was and still is to this day one of the biggest challenges for me being this type of channel, because I was not comfortable with improv when I was an actor. It was the scariest thing for me. I very much enjoyed knowing the lines, knowing where it was going, having the research, understanding the symbolism, like being this type of research performer. So that was the first true lessons, was getting really comfortable in that improv space and knowing that the pictures and everything would come through. Then once I got a better outline, really only within the last year or so, sharing myself and connecting with you and with other people in the community, we've all been able to reflect back to each other. And I really feel that all of us together have really kind of formed more so who Bella actually is. And once I was given more of the character, then it's almost like I'm able to revert back to my original ways of approaching channeling, by just being a storyteller and allowing the song to come through. It's like I can see it all. Like I can see it like a movie. I can see her experience completely like a show. And now I know who the character is to be able to merge. So yeah, sorry. I feel like it's an interesting, it's a beautiful question. I thank you for it, but I don't really think I've ever quite had the opportunity to draw language to the parallels before. So thank you for that. And I hope it makes sense.
It does. It's a lot to take in, but
yeah.
I did come up with a question while you were speaking. So you have a relationship with Bella. Is she your future self? Oh, I wasn't sure.
From what I understand, and again, she always really likes to remind me and everyone that it isn't about the details. Mm-hmm. That even though I may have an understanding of her character, that's still going to shift, and it isn't about that. It's about the message. Uh-huh. But from what I understand, she and I are counterparts. So she is of my oversoul, a counterpart incarnation, but she is more so in what is most applicable for us to understand our same timeline. So she's not really in what we would identify as the future or what we would identify as the past. However, because of where she is stationed in fourth density, she recently showed me the other day in a session that for her experience, fourth density is fourth density is fourth density. And she can go through anything that we would define as a future or a past, as long as it's still within fourth density. It's part of like the same playing field.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that how she spends her days, like going all around fourth density, or is it more linear, do you think, for her?
I think it depends on what is relevant. So she's able to have her own experience in ways that I think is far more like mind-bending and spiral and exploring fourth density through these timelines. And then what comes through me, which she shares with us, are things that are maybe a little bit more linear based and have a little bit more story structure to them, so that it's actually applicable. Mm-hmm. So that there's certain morality tales or ideas or stories that we can like actually utilize in our day-to-day life. But she's also very strategic with being very tricky and being very loosey-goosey with her explanations, sometimes, with other people, but certainly with me. So I'm very much left kind of in this space where I'm like, what? And then it just honestly gets so kind of like far out to me, where it immediately puts me back in that present moment where I'm like, okay, right, that doesn't matter. Like all of this other amazing kind of stuff will reveal itself and be relevant when we need to understand it. But like right now, am I acting in my joy? Yes or no? Okay, cool. Am I insisting anything? Maybe a little bit. Okay, yes or no? Like it always goes back to like,
Yeah.
their classic answer for
Mhm.
sure. But to answer a little, yeah, because it is interesting to me because once that clued in, because she is very adamant in us feeling that she is very much in the same dimension, even what we would understand as our same timeline. It's funny, there's a doorbell that just went off as soon as I was like, she's right here, because this is,
That's her.
yeah, it is, yeah. And all of us aligning with that reality. So funny that doorbell is a wonderful friend of mine. That she's very much in the same dimension as us, that we are in the fourth dimension, that she is able to lower herself closer to third density as possible, but still like right in that bridge, and that she and the rest of the Yagel and many of the hybrid kids and all of the different hybrid lineages are able to be like just beyond the corner of our eye, like right there. They're right at this overlay that is just a little bit further than where we're going, or right at the marker of where we're going. So we can really understand how we're not that different biologically, energetically, and really the only difference is us still in the stages of truly knowing what we know. But she's, right there. But just beyond right there is like fully remembering that there's no box, right? Like,
Wow.
like Pandora's box opening for all of us is remembering that, like, whoa, there's no box. There's like actually no limits. Yeah, so she leads I think her day-to-day life is extremely full of what we did, at least how I translate it, is just like magic and fantasy. I'm like, what? Like,
but
amazing.
she has certain missions, right, that she does.
Yeah. Recently, she's been sharing that she's actually very focused with helping me to expand in different ways. She's very interested in being able to, so where she's located, she says that she's above Haleakala in Maui. And because of that specific vortex, she's able to tap into the collective heart of Gaia and of our collective consciousness. So she spends a lot of what we would define as time. Her consciousness is spent kind of like reading the records and reading the different shifts and exploring with the hybrid kids, because she's got I think a lot of what we would define as the hybrid kids. Again, that whole concept is shifting as well. She said yesterday in a channeling with someone that actually with Kyla Mason. I'm gonna be shared on her YouTube channel, so people get a chance to listen to it. But, she said yesterday that it's important for us to know that that the hybrid children concept is still shifting, and that it may look a little bit different, perhaps than what we've all thought, because we're all still writing it together. That there are different races involved in what these kids may actually look like. Basically that the storyline is shifting, because we're still writing it, and that again, she really wants to emphasize that all of the races, all participants that have donated to the races, that's all of our children. And that, the smaller percentages. So she really likes to emphasize that. So and again, like I only ask like too far, like so far, and I'm like, okay, like what, cool, like whatever. But she spends a lot of time with the freelancers, and what is becoming more solid is there are a certain group of kids that do feel very much in the same energy of maybe what we've all thought of as like these freelancers. They definitely look a little more human. Look very much more like us, and they are interested in being the ones that may actually physically come first, but that have more direct contact with their high percentage donors in dreams, in sending synchronicities, that basically like there's one representative for like each parent, simply enough, that like helps to majority train these kids. It's like, it's kind of like the next generation of contact specialists, but they're from what we would understand like specifically the children. So that's kind of interesting. And she says most of those beings are also connected to the, not specifically Cybo, but like the 13 ultimate transformation oversoul that a lot of those kids, but then it gets so detailed and confusing and weird. It's like, that doesn't mean that all of them are like literally my counterparts or her counterparts. You know, it's this larger archetype that's relevant for storytelling and for ultimate transformational purposes, but most of those kids are connected to that archetype. Yeah, it gets very like detailed, honestly.
Yeah. I really resonate with the part that she's emphasizing about how we are all the parents of the hybrid children. I really find, like, when I had my son, it was just, I didn't realize like what unconditional love was like, you know, is to that amount of depth, you know. And I feel like if we can all, it's such a bond to have that feeling, to share that with another person, like I do with his father and his grandparents. And I just feel like that, realizing that we are all the parents of these children is such a bonding experience for humanity, you know. And I think it's going to help to break down a lot of fears and barriers that we have
Absolutely.
against each.
Absolutely. There's so much expansion and positivity and just full lessons in unconditional love that comes from that. Absolutely. And how big our impact can be as individuals, how understanding we can be of everyone. Another way of like fully knowing that the one is the all and the all are the one, like actually. And also, too, slightly more specifically, for those of us that may be remembering more relevant encounters with the Greys and be able to align with a different mythology where it doesn't have to be as traumatizing or as negative, because we know the story and we know what the repercussions of our service is, you know. Like my interpretation when they say, how may we be of service to you, it's referring to the service that we've given of basically giving them life and giving them experience and them being able to come back, like, how may we be of service to you? And being able to have that storyline and feel that love and feel that presence from thousands and thousands and thousands of beings, like, so that when we begin to align with these different aspects of the denial of the shadow of the mirror, that it's time for us to address and remember in more positive ways, we're that much more resourced to be able to really do it because of the family extending its one heart. Absolutely.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I think one of the challenges that we have is in our society is with our older generations, we may not appreciate them as much as we could. You know, I have a vision of, you know, all of the older people who are put in homes and everything. They have a lot of gifts that we aren't able to access for whatever reason, our negative beliefs or their negative beliefs. But you know, in the Yael and the Sasani civilizations, they are fully functional until the day they die and expressing themselves fully. And so I just feel like that's one of our processes that we're going to go through, that we're going to start to realize the treasures we have in our mentors and our, you know, people who are older than us, our parents. That reminds me of what I heard you say recently about your parents, that you are moving into new versions of them, right? Like that you have much more flourishing relationship with them. And
yeah, it's really, it's almost shocking, honestly, but it's so beautiful, and I'm so grateful and appreciative, and they're flipping in different versions of, you know, of themselves, and I'm aligning with different versions of me, and with them it's this whole, like, I can see and experience what they talk about, how it works. Like, this was an experience for me to be like, I don't change my external world, I change my inner reality. And then like especially with my parents, like I got it. And yeah, they are, you know, it's not like they're booking me for sessions and, you know, wanting to chat with Bella and telling me about any rememberings of, you know, grays or anything that they may be experiencing. And I don't ever want to force storylines onto people. I think it's possible that my, you know, parents have very much had their own story. Like, that whole thing, again, is like getting into all the details. Like, I just don't really like feel relevant. Right. As this is a whole lineage thing. Like, whatever. For me, for my family personally, I'm just so thankful to be able to have conversations about them with us at a certain level. They come from the theater, so they understand the story of it, you know, of listening to our emotions and, you know, connecting with family and following your joy. They're like, oh, you know, that's good stuff. And, but yeah, I mean, to go from one reality where they were extremely worried about me to now them asking like really interesting questions, and a part of their brain is like, oh, like, I think this is actually how planet Earth is receiving some form of like first contact. Like, whoa. And my grandparents, you know, like looping back to, I've always known that I've just been blessed with like some of the coolest people for grandparents. And they know what I do too. They, like, at first I think I was like, oh, I'm like an energetic, you know, healer, and I do intuitive readings. And then I think a few months after that, I was like, actually, like, here's what I do. You know, I'm connecting to an extraterrestrial being, and I explained it all to them, and they were like, it didn't even like faze them. It was one of the like coolest, most fun interactions. They were like, oh, okay.
Wow.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, they were like, oh, yeah, sure, well, that sounds nice. Well, there's all things out there. Well, you never know. and you know, they're like, well, it sounds like it's coming from a good place. And they're very much come from a Catholic background, but I think in a way where a certain form of it, but like Irish Catholic, and most Irish Catholics end up kind of like renouncing the church, but like remember actually what Yeshua said, you know? So so they have that just innate understanding of the heart of it all, and again of just following our joy and that being it, you know. But that was another experience that was really beautiful for me to feel brave enough to share, and to know that I was grounded enough in my integration that I would be able to align with a grounded, open version of my family.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's wonderful.
Yeah, it is.